Hey, this is Jen Gray, your host of Be Genuine with Jen podcast, where we discover how our authenticity is our superpower. I am so excited you've joined me for today's episode. Let's get started. Hi, friends. I hope you guys are having the best week, and I am so excited about this episode. I'm always excited. This is like my favorite thing ever to get to do. But you guys, I have been doing this for a whole year. So happy first birthday to Be Genuine with Jen, which literally seems surreal in so many different ways. And it's funny to go back and listen to episode 1. Someone asked me recently, they said, do you ever like go back and listen to old ones? And I'm like, not on the reg, but I have recently gone back just in the celebration and just to see where we've come from, right? Where we started and where we are. And I say we because so many of you have been on the journey since day one. So many of you have jumped on board sometime in the past 365 days. However, we've been introduced. I'm so grateful that you're here. I'm so grateful that my story, what I'm learning, adds value to you. I love learning from you and your stories and the value that you add to the world. And I love that we get to journey in this crazy life together. But today's going to be pretty short and sweet. And I'm going to talk about 4 major things that I learned across the last year, from jumping into it to what that looks like, what I felt like internally, like emotionally, my confidence level, opportunities that have opened, and all of that. And so your journey may look different. So I want you to know today, I'm using my podcast and the journey of the podcast as the subject necessarily of the growth and the change, but it may be different for you. And maybe, and this is my hope, is that when you listen to this, if you are scared to jump, or if maybe you have this amazing idea and the only place that it exists right now is in your journals, I'm sure they are super cute and you've got all the fun gel pens. But if they are only existing in your journals, this is who I want to talk to today. I want to tell you what I've learned and why I think that today is the best day for you to jump. So if you haven't listened to episode 1, you totally should. If you want to know kind of like the why, like why this podcast, why did I jump into this space? I love it. A couple of days ago, someone asked me, they said, you do know that there are millions of other podcasts in existence. So why did you decide to start a podcast? It just seems like a daunting task. And like, where do you find your people? And here's what I love that question, because if you are looking through the lens of scarcity, then you're like, oh my goodness, why on earth would they choose me over Mel Robbins or Ed Mylett or any amazing podcast out there? Is there really even space for me? And I just looked at it different. I'm like, you know what? It's the beautiful part about a podcast is you're owning a platform where you can simply share the value you want to share. For me, it's coming alongside you guys and helping you get unstuck, helping you build the confidence and the worthiness to step forward in your life, no matter what happened in your rearview mirror. It's shifting a mindset to being a mindset of dreaming bigger and doing more and not living a life where you're waiting for something else to happen. We live too many times like this is simply a dress rehearsal. And that's really the premise of what this whole podcast is about. So that brings me to my very first point is you will never be ready to start. So if you are waiting, and the reason they are in journals is because you are waiting to be ready to start. Let me just let you know that you will never be ready to start. So whatever you are waiting on, you're never going to get there if you just never take a leap. Here's the beautiful part about that. I love Mel Robbins, and she has been so influential in my life and, just on all the levels. Like her podcast has added so much value to my world. And she had a podcast last summer and it talked about being a beginner. And whatever you want to do, whatever you want to jump into, or whatever, passion that you have like burning deep inside of you, you're only going to be ready after you start. Right. And another thing that I heard is sometimes you're waiting for confidence, but you're waiting for confidence. And actually that's going to come way, way, way later on. But what you're going to start with actually is just courage and just go and just say, I'm never going to be ready. It's kind of like if any of you guys are parents, I don't know if you, maybe just me, I'm like, listen, y'all are letting me go home with Addison and I do not have proper training. Like, I don't really know that I know exactly what I'm doing, but what happens as a parent? You just figure it out. None of us are ever ready. And I don't care if you have a child, you're never ready for child number 2, right? Like you're just not. But that's the beautiful part of it is you get to learn along the way if you put your ego aside and you're focusing on the one person that you want to impact. And that's what I told this gentleman who asked me, why did you start a podcast? Why wouldn't they listen to all these other podcasts? And I'm like, I hope they do. There's so much value to be found. But you know what's going to happen? If I show up as who I am with the value that I can uniquely add, I'm going to connect with the people that I need to connect to. And I may never be an international best-selling all of that. I have big major goals, but my ultimate goal and your ultimate goal is what? To make an impact, to make someone else's life better, whether it's in business or it's in life or it's practically with some like really cool stuff that you make. Like no matter what lane you're in, if you focus on wanting and desiring to add that value, then all you're going to worry about is showing up. So for me, showing up meant taking a leap and starting a podcast. And what I learned, and that's what I love even about the first episode, y'all, I literally was like, boom, I'm going to do this and I'm going to go live on YouTube and then I'm going to do the audio and all the other places. If you listen to a couple of the beginning episodes, you'll know. I didn't know you had to ask to go live on YouTube 24 hours before you go live. I hadn't done that. So day one, starting the podcast, and I'm like, JK, we're actually going to do the live on Facebook because I know how to do a Facebook live. Can I get a witness, right? Like that was something that I already knew like the back of my hand. That's the thing. If you don't take yourself too seriously, you allow yourself to grow. I'm going to say that a little louder for some of you in the back. If you don't take yourself too seriously, you're going to allow yourself to grow. But if you come in expecting to be Mel Robbins on day one, you're going to quit. Because guess what? Newsflash, you're not Mel Robbins. If you come day one and say, I'm going to show up with everything I've got to do A, B, or C, guess what? You give yourself permission to grow. You give yourself permission to learn along the way instead of expecting to know everything before you jump in there. So I literally had my phone in front of my face on my desk. My computer was doing the video. I was recording the audio at the same time so it could launch over to Spotify and Apple. The video was going live on YouTube. Since then, I've transitioned over to StreamYard. And so it's all like seamless. Like everything's going live in all the places. And I just have to click a button and connect it. And it's all good, right? I didn't know that a year ago. But if I'd waited till I knew that, I think I got introduced to it to sometime in the spring. I would have missed out on 8 months of starting if I had thought that I needed a better system. You'll never be ready, but start anyways. Number 2, do not fake it till you make it. Listen, that is literally the worst advice ever. Because here's what I want you to think through. If your mindset is, I'm going to fake it till I make it. I'm going to pretend that I am a dynamic blank. I'm going to pretend that I speak to arenas full of people, right? I'm not talking about like visualization and dreaming big and all that and showing up as the best version of yourself. It's the idea that fake it till you make it means that you are lying as you show up to people. In your mind, you are telling yourself, this is not really who you are. We're lying to everybody else so that they think that you're worth listening to. Ever thought about it like that? I shifted my mindset in that because that's something that I'd always heard for decades of my life. Fake it till you make it. Just show up as this person and just no. What if I had come on here in the end of September of 2023 and I let you know that I was going to tell you exactly how to rebuild your life and make multiple 6 figures in a year and have a best-selling book and a national platform and all that? If I came on here and told you guys that and I faked it till I made it, and that's horrible grammar, but I decided to go with it, right? I would have zero credibility because I'm not there yet. So how did I show up? Just like you need to show up. Guess what? I'm Jen Gray. I have completely restarted my life and everything in my life from the bottom up at the age of 40. And I am so excited to walk you along the journey of me building a life that I'm proud of as you learn how to build yourself a life that you're proud of, a legacy that you're proud of. So the expectation is Jen has restarted and she has shifted everything and she's taking us along on the journey, right? That doesn't shift what my goals are, but I'm showing up as someone just as that, not as all of the things I want to be in the future. I'm showing up who I authentically am right now so that I can get to my goals in the future. Do you see the difference? Because otherwise, if I felt like I needed to show up as someone that I wasn't, you're going to see right through me. And I guarantee you, if you think for just probably a couple of seconds, you can think of other people, whether online or on stages or in your life or in businesses, and you're like, they are fake as can be. You're like, they did not do that. They do not have that credibility. Like, who are they trying to fool? Don't be that person. So again, this is why we don't have to fake it till we make it, right, y'all? We have removed the expectation that it takes confidence to start anything. Because what I reminded you, it doesn't take confidence, that comes later. It takes the courage. So you're going to do it scared. Do what Jen Gottlieb said. I loved it. It's the best mental image I've ever had of fear, where she's like, guess what? Stop trying to pretend like you're going to get rid of fear, like that it's just all of a sudden gone. It's not. So then what do? We just live in fear. We're like, give over fear control because we know there's nothing that we can do to get rid of it. No. You get in the car, you get in your driver's seat, then you put fear in the passenger seat. And you're like, fear, guess what? I acknowledge that you are here. I acknowledge that I am scared to death to do what I'm about to do. But guess what, fear? You're going to sit right there. You do not touch the steering wheel. You do not touch the radio. You do not even get to sing along to my songs. All right. You are sitting right here and I am going. And with fear, here we go. Here's what that looks like. Maybe you're scared and your confidence is like at a 15. Take the 15% and show up. And you know what's going to happen after you show up one time at 15%? Guarantee you next time you're at least at 21%. And then that next time it may be a 24%. And you just keep showing up and your confidence is going to start growing and growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. It'll never be 100%, right? There's always going to be fear, but you don't have to start with 100 level confidence before you jump into something. So don't fake it till you make it. You're going to own it. And you're going to be who you are. And I am telling you, it is so refreshing to meet someone, even in business. So I'm in a lot of networking meetings. I love building connections in real life with people who share the same passion level. Like we all do very, very, very different things. But to find people who are just all in on adding value in the lane that they can add value. These are my people. Okay. I know my people. Who are your people? But listen, when you own that and when you find that, then you're going to find people who are on their journey and that are just ready to like be gut level honest about where they are so that they can go to the next level. If I'm honest about being a beginner, you know what that does? That gives somebody out there permission to be a beginner because they're like, oh, wait, hold on. Removing the pressure that I have to be somebody that I'm not. You as you are enough. Do we all want to grow? I sure as heck hope so. So we're not saying we're stuck where we always are. But if you don't believe that right now you have enough value to give and you're not enough, then that's where you've got to start. And that is an internal conversation. And you've got to grow the internal emotional intelligence and internal courage to just go and to just jump and to just do it. Because listen, if you think that you have to lie and you have to manipulate people in order to listen to you, y'all, you're going to build a business that you are going to be nauseated by eventually. Because you're like, first of all, it's not duplicatable. If I got on here and I told all of y'all to go and pretend like you made millions of dollars so you can go be a coach online and teach people how to make millions of dollars, would you guys pay me? No, there's plenty of people that do that. No, that's shady. If I would be like, can you show me your bank account? If you're about to tell me that you can help me make $1 million, I'm going to hope that you know how to make $1 million, right? That is not my podcast, in case we haven't known. We can just speak that into future existence. But that's not my podcast. That's not your life. Why do you think you got to be somebody that you're not? I want you to write down on a piece of paper everything you have experience in. Where were you 5 years ago? You have everything it takes to help someone who is where you were 5 years ago get to where you are now. You're like, but Jen, I'm not where I want to be. Okay. Are you where you were 5 years ago? Are you where you were a year ago? I just talked to a group of very, very high level, high performing real estate agents. And I get in there and I'm like, they are on the top of their game, right? And we're all sitting around a table. And I'm like, guess what? I know the fact that you're around this table with me right now means that you have hit some major goals. Not just anybody was invited to this mastermind today that I'm getting to lead, right? You have achieved a lot to be able to be here. But I guarantee not any one of you around this table wants to be where you are next year. And they're all like, oh, yeah, no, right? Right where they are now was their goal for last year. But when you get to that next level, you're like, okay. Then it's like the magic of thinking big. If you haven't read that book, go and read it. It completely shifted my brain. The magic of thinking big is that once your brain gets expanded, then it's never going to shrink. It's just going to keep expanding. So now these agents have expanded to this level. And guess what? Now we have to learn the tools and the disciplines and the actions that it's going to take to get you to that next level. I am not a business coach. I will not give you practical business tools. What I will do is help you shift your mindset so that you can apply the right business tools in your life to help you elevate your business. I know my lane. I am not some corporate CEO of anything, right? But what I have done is completely restarted my life and aligned myself with like-minded people and have chosen to absolutely chase after a legacy that I'm proud of for my 4 kids and I. That's who I am. Who are you? I want you to define that. Sit down and wrestle with this. What is the real value that I can give somebody? Who did I need 5 years ago, and how can I show up for that person today? Maybe that's even your starting point of what you need to step into, what you need to take the leap and start and jump, and what that even looks like. But maybe those are the questions that you need to ask so that you can start finding your own purpose and your own place in this crazy world that has such a need for you and your story. And number 3, vulnerability builds bridges. Out of curiosity, I've gone back and looked at insights over the last podcast and what resonates, what doesn't resonate. I mean, there's a couple episodes I'm like, I guess I learned something in like just recording it because it like fell totally flat. Those are great, right? You learn from them, right? So the moments in your life, in your business that fall flat, the biggest lessons. Then you go back and I look at what connected, what resonated. And the only part that I hate about the podcast is that I can't see your faces. I can't see your eyes light up. I can't see the tears well up. I can't see the light bulbs go off, which is my favorite part, which is why I launched into public speaking, because I missed that element. But in this podcast, you get to actually feel my vulnerability. That's the gift of having a platform and an area to speak. And what I've noticed is the times that I share parts of my story, although they may look completely different than yours, the power is that everyone has a story and everybody's story matters. And sometimes opening up our heart to being able to share hard things and the lessons that we grew through and how we shifted in those times, that allows other people to feel permission that their story matters. And I know that because I've heard from a lot of you. That, Jen, I have a story. People need to hear it. I'm like, yes, they do. I don't care if 400 other people have very similar stories than you. Guess what, you guys? There's no other you out there, which means you are uniquely equipped and have a unique purpose that's just yours. It's not like an accident. Do you think God needed to create just one more person? Right? I don't know what you believe spiritually, but I believe that we were created on purpose and for a purpose. In my life, the way things are woven together, it's been too on purpose for me to believe it was all just an accident. You're not an accident. And what you can learn is that the hard parts of your story, you may have heard these little sayings, right? Like let your mess be your message. Like your pain gives you purpose. And those aren't just like cute little cliches. Because you know what I learned? When I talk about like parts of my story where, I built it, my other career, my other life, I built it to the peak. Like I was doing really, really, really well. That doesn't resonate with a lot of people. A lot of us but you know what resonates? Disappointment and life. But listen, not as a victim. Right? If you haven't heard anything, and if you're brand new to me, I am not here to tell you the sad sob stories and that I'm a victim. No, 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 no. Life happens for us, not to us. And when we learn to look at our life and reframe our life in a way that it propels us forward, everything changes. And I wish I knew this when I was 18, but I'm so glad I learned it when I was 40. Because the way I look at it, today is a new day. I get to learn from what happened yesterday and the other days, but they do not have to have any power on any forward days if I don't want it to. And that's where vulnerability builds bridges. So instead of speaking at people, or even in business, right? If you, again, it goes back to the fake it till you make it. All of this weaves together, and what I've learned and what I'm so reminded, it does not matter what kind of platform. People want to know real. Not dirty laundry on Facebook. I don't think that's ever appropriate. Hello, but you don't need to know that, right? But lessons that you've learned, or pitfalls that you could help someone else overcome in starting a new business. Maybe you stepped out of corporate world, jumped into full-time, making your side hustle work. What does that look like? Don't think in your head, do you know how many people have gone from the corporate world to starting their own business? And that's old news. Really? Has anyone ever had your exact story and done it like you? Has anyone ever had the exact coaching or the exact books that you read or the exact people in your life or influences in your life or past that shaped you the way that you are? I don't think so. In fact, I know so. So if you're letting all of those limiting beliefs run what you do and what you don't do, if there is anything you get on today's episode, I want you to see those as like these text bubbles above your head telling you all these things of why you don't need to, why you don't have to. And this is a rabbit trail I'm about to get on. The reason that I actually listened to those is because it wasn't like there were voices telling me that I couldn't do it, because like I could push those away. But it was voices telling me I didn't have to, or there's already so many people doing it so much better. And so I thought that was humility to say, I'm going to let them run that lane and I'm just going to do something different. It's not humility, you guys. It's not. It's fear. We can just call it what it is. There's no humility by not letting your life impact somebody else's. In fact, it's really selfish. And that's what I got to. Because there's a lot of really, really hard, painful seasons of my life. And part of the only redemption of those seasons is knowing if I can help save another woman from experiencing this or feeling like this, just sometimes it feels like then it's worth it. Like, because that you guys have grown the most in the hard seasons, right? So what did you actually learn? Start journaling that out. What if, I want you to go back to one of the hardest times of your life. What if you had somebody else that was as brave as you need to be, that showed up and helped guide you into the next steps of you getting out of what you were in and stepping into what you needed to be in? Why can't you be that person? Maybe it's not a podcast. Maybe it's you actually just making connections with people. Maybe it's you actually sharing parts of your story one-on-one with others that are safe, because you know it's going to help them. And it's going to give you credibility to be able to speak into them and say, guess what? If I can just give you hope today that this is what I went through, but this is where I am today, and I'm nowhere where I want to be, I want you to start believing in yourself, because if I can do it, you can do it. Sometimes people need to hear that. But if we act like we have all of our crap together, people don't want to hear that. That's not relatable. None of us do. So stop pretending to be something that you're not, because that does not build bridges. That shuts people off, and they get guarded, and they're like, well, they wouldn't get me. They wouldn't understand me. They've not been through anything, because it's vulnerability that builds the bridges. Number 4, once you're in the arena, new opportunities unfold. You guys, it is insane to think back through like the last year. And again, I just showed up on a podcast, and to be super vulnerable. Do you know why I really showed up? In the past, I've only ever public spoken to high school girls. I knew I wanted to speak to adults. I knew both men and women. It doesn't matter. Like I'm not even like biased, because I believe this mindset shift can absolutely impact anybody. I believe people are stuck. They need to get unstuck. They need to shift their mindset. They need to reframe. And I'm like, if I had known this before, it would have changed my life. So I'm going to give my life to being able to share what I've learned and what I am learning to other people. And that's what I did. I jumped out here. And for me, it was a podcast because guess what? Nobody could tell me I couldn't do it, right? Like it's why I went live on Facebook. I used to go live every single day. And it was my own way to connect. And it's a way to practice public speaking. I missed getting to speak. I lost that opportunity when I lost my job through crazy life circumstances and through a divorce. That didn't change my heart and my passion to want to impact people. My message changed, right? Like the lessons that I've learned have grown me in ways that I was not even remotely equipped to teach on before. And I didn't like, you can't just like call somebody up and be like, can I come speak? Right? At least I didn't think you could. Maybe you can. You all go try it. Maybe I've overcomplicated it and I started with a podcast, but it made the most sense to me. I'm going to practice forming my message and just sharing my whole journey of where I'm at, what I'm learning and what I'm going through so someone else can connect and have that hope. So I did. So I've started it. And so it's kind of funny. The goal was once a week. The reality was after 52 weeks, I had done 26 episodes. This is episode 27. And so then the next year's goal is perfect. Like 26 episodes in my first year, I will high five that. Now this next year, I will do at least one a week, right? That's my level upping goal. But the part was more for me to show up and for me to learn how to connect my story, learn what connects in my story. And I thought it's so funny. Like 6 weeks ago, somebody asked me, what do you want to do in 5 years? And I'm like, I want to be on stages. Like, well, what are you doing right now to be on stages? Like you're helping people with health insurance and life insurance. You're rolling over some 401ks. And then you have this podcast. But how are you working towards the goal that you're trying to get? Ask yourself, where do you want to be in 5 years? Like, actually want to be. Like, if you could wake up living the life that you want to live in your lane and your arena, like, what does that even look like? And I could see it crystal clear. I love me some Jamie Kern Lima. And I'm like, I don't know what it looks like, but what I do know is whatever arenas that Jamie Kern Lima is speaking in, I know that my message aligns with her. So that's the first thing. I want to be speaking on a stage that Jamie Kern Lima is also speaking on. That's as much as I could articulate. The next question was, well, when are you going to start? And I'm like, I guess I got to figure that out. And they were challenged one step further. They're like, well, you already have a message. You already have your authenticity, your superpower. What if you could use that in these corporate settings and these teams? Okay. And I just threw it out there. And then the first 3 days, I got 5 bookings. All because I just stepped into it. And I'm telling you, when you step into one thing scary, it makes the next thing a little bit easier to step into. Because the reason I just did it when they were like, what's keeping you? I'm like, that's why I started a podcast, right? Because what's stopping me? Let's don't live in the fear. Let's don't live in the waiting. Let's don't live in the 10 years from now, 5 years from now. Jen, today's all we got. We're not promised tomorrow. And so for me, I just took the leap. So if that seems like your pits are sweaty right now and you're like nauseated on the fact of just like actually taking a step towards it, I get it. And I'm telling you that after you take that first leap, the second leap is going to be a little bit easier. The next level of uncomfortableness, a tad bit easier. Always with fear. Fear's still in the passenger seat, and you're just going to keep pushing fear to the side and keep leveling up and stepping forward. Does that mean everything happens perfectly? Absolutely not, right? There are still no's, there's still disappointments. Life isn't just like rosy and all the things, but you can't ever get towards your goals if you don't actually start taking messy action to get to them. And you've got to get in the arena before you even start doing that. A year ago, without the podcast, without getting to speak at other places and without these networking and all of the things in my journey that prepared me for 4 weeks ago to launch a speaking platform, I would have never been ready. But when you just keep taking action and you just keep showing up as who you are, then you're going to know the next action to take. And the people, I'm telling you, the law of attraction is real, and you start to align and connect with people that can help you get to your next spot. And I want to read this. If you guys have ever read anything by Brene Brown, you know that it's absolutely her favorite quote. And I'm going to close out with this and wrap it up with this idea of the arena. It says, this is a Teddy Roosevelt speech in 1910. He said, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again. Because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions? Who spends himself in the worthy cause? Who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement? And who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly? Oh, I get chills every time. One of my favorite parts of this whole quote is the credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, and it's not pretty and it's messy. And you get in and you get up and you get down, you get knocked down, you get knocked up, like all the things. But the power is in jumping into the arena and knowing that that's the only courageous step that you may need to take today. So that 1 year from today, you can say, 1 year ago, I took a step in this direction, and this is all that I learned in this last year. That doesn't need to be 2026. Why can't that be 2025 for you? And you know how it can be? If you decide right now, 2025 is going to be different. And that idea or that dream in your mind that keeps you up or gives you butterflies in your stomach, that's the one you need to go after. There's no reason to wait 5 years, no reason to wait 10 years. Don't wait till you're ready. Get started now and just jump. Oh, I love you guys so, so much. And that may seem super crazy because I've not met so many of you. But there are people all across the world who hate people for absolutely no reason. And I will always choose to love you for absolutely no reason until we meet and I find the millions of reasons there are to love you. Thank you so much for listening. If you found any value in this, I would invite you to share. Share this on your social media. I'd love to reshare it for you and shout you out and tag you. Thank you so much for being such a faithful following and for cheering me on. And you guys, let's do this. Let's get ready for the best year of our life. I believe it.